Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow as he crouched under the glowing panels of the life support system. The colony's oxygen regulator was malfunctioning again, and it seemed like every week a new problem appeared. Out here, on the orbiting research station above the emerald blue exoplanet, every small error could turn dangerous very quickly. The lab was quiet, except for the hum of machines and the faint hiss of circulating air. He was used to long nights like this, but tonight, something felt different. A shadow fell across the floor and he looked up. "Still at it, human?" said a voice smooth and calm, yet carrying an unfamiliar musical tone. Ethan froze, recognizing the voice instantly. Lyra, the new cultural liaison from the nearby planet, was standing by the doorway. Her presence was always striking. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lab lights, reflecting colors he couldn't quite name. Her eyes were sharp, curious, and intelligent, and she moved with a fluid grace that made every gesture purposeful. Yeah, Ethan stammered, adjusting his helmet. "The oxygen regulator? It's acting up again." Lyra stepped closer, tilting her head slightly. "You humans are always so busy with your machines. But you forget that sometimes the answer isn't in the panels. Sometimes it's in understanding the signals around you." Ethan frowned. He wasn't sure what she meant. "Signals?" She smiled faintly. "The subtle ones. The gestures, the changes in tone, the things you don't notice. Do you think you can understand me?" He swallowed. I try. I want to." Lyra leaned a little closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "You want to know if I'm not wearing anything underneath?" Ethan's stomach jumped. His mind raced for a moment before he caught himself. He realized quickly that Lyra wasn't speaking literally. Her species often used phrasing like this to test comprehension, to see if the listener could understand the meaning beyond the words. He nodded, careful not to show his nervousness. "Yes," he said. "I want to understand." Her smile widened almost approvingly. "Good, then pay attention. Listen not just to my words, but to the rhythm, the pauses between the pauses. Only then can you truly understand." Ethan exhaled and focused, trying to quiet his racing thoughts. He knew Lyra was more than just a liaison. Her species, the Varelians, were known for their intelligence and adaptability. They communicated with humans easily enough, but those subtle cultural cues were tricky. To misread them could create misunderstandings, even conflict. Lyra gestured to the panels. "Show me what you're doing and I will guide you. But you must watch carefully. One wrong move could cause a chain reaction." Ethan moved back to the console and pointed to a set of flickering lights. "This is where the oxygen flow drops. I think the pressure valve isn't responding properly." She crouched beside him, her movements precise and elegant. "Not just the valve," she said softly, "but the timing. Humans think mechanically, but there is a rhythm to it. A pulse that machines follow if you listen closely." He frowned, trying to focus. It was strange to hear her speak this way, almost like she was teaching him to feel the machine rather than simply read it. He adjusted a dial slowly, watching the gauge. The pressure stabilized for a moment, then flickered again. Lyra observed quietly. Then she made a subtle gesture with her hand, barely noticeable. A small flick of her wrist, a shift in her stance. Ethan hesitated, then adjusted another dial, mimicking the rhythm of her gesture. The flickering stopped. The system began to hum steadily. Ethan blinked. You just guided me without touching anything." Lyra's eyes glinted with satisfaction. "Exactly. You are learning to see beyond the obvious. That is what I meant by signals. Machines, humans, Varelians, everything has a rhythm. Everything has a signal. You only need to pay attention." Ethan felt a rush of excitement. He had always been good with machines, but this was different. He was learning to interpret intention and rhythm in a completely new way. He looked at her, admiration growing, but he kept his composure. "Now," she continued, "there is something else I need your help with." She gestured to a small console on the far side of the lab. "This device is meant to communicate with the planet below. It must be tuned correctly or our messages will be lost. Can you do it?" He walked over, taking the tools she handed him. "I'll try. But the last time someone tampered with this, the signal was completely scrambled." Lyra crouched beside him again. "Then listen. The signal is not just in the numbers. You must feel the flow, understand the shifts, anticipate the pauses. I cannot do it alone, but together we can succeed." For the next hour, they worked side by side. Ethan learned to watch her gestures closely, to interpret her pauses and even the slight changes in her breathing. It was difficult at first, but slowly he began to anticipate her movements. The device responded, lights blinking in steady patterns, the signal stabilizing. "You are improving quickly," Lyra said, her voice calm but approving. "Humans often underestimate themselves. You have the patience and the curiosity. That is why you are capable of understanding." Ethan felt a swell of pride. He had always been confident in his engineering skills, but this was different. This was understanding another species, bridging the gap between alien intelligence and human perception, and he was succeeding. Suddenly, the console beeped urgently. Ethan jumped slightly. "What now?" he asked. Lyra's expression was serious. "The emergency protocol. The oxygen regulator may stabilize for now, but the planet's atmosphere is unpredictable. There could be a sudden shift in pressure or temperature. You need to be ready." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "I'll monitor it." She gave a small nod. "Good, but remember, monitoring alone is not enough. You must anticipate, predict, and act before the system signals a problem. That is the difference between reactive and proactive thinking." Hours passed, and Ethan barely noticed. He and Lyra worked together, communicating with gestures, subtle signals, and occasional whispered words. The bond between human and alien grew stronger, built on trust, mutual respect, and the shared challenge of survival in the harsh environment of space. Finally, the station's systems stabilized. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," he said, smiling. Lyra smiled back, her eyes reflecting the glow of the control panels. "Yes, we did. You have learned much tonight, and I am pleased." Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond fixing machines. He had learned to see beyond the surface, to understand signals and intentions, and to work in harmony with someone completely different. Lyra stood, her movements graceful. "Rest now. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and you must be ready." Ethan watched her leave, feeling a strange mixture of relief and curiosity. He realized that this was only the beginning. There was so much more to learn. Not just about the machines, not just about Lyra, but about what humans could achieve when they truly tried to understand something alien and complex. As he settled back in his chair, he reflected on the whispered question from earlier. It had not been about what it seemed. It had been a test, a challenge to see if he could go beyond literal words and perceive the meaning underneath. And he had passed. For the first time, Ethan understood that in space, in life, and in the infinite stretches of the galaxy, success depended not just on knowledge or skill, but on attention, patience, and the willingness to understand. And with that thought, he closed his eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. The next day, Ethan woke early, the soft hum of the station filling the quiet room. He had slept fitfully, dreams of flickering lights and shifting signals still lingering in his mind. He knew today would be harder. The planet below was unpredictable, its atmosphere filled with sudden gusts of ionized winds, and the colony's systems depended entirely on precise monitoring and control. Lyra was already in the lab when he arrived, her presence calm and reassuring. She had spent the early hours reviewing data from the planetary sensors, her slender fingers tracing the glowing holographic displays. Ethan felt a strange mix of admiration and nervousness. Lyra's species had a way of being completely composed even in the most chaotic situations, and humans often found that unsettling. "Good morning, human," she said, her voice melodic but firm. "The planet has shifted its magnetic field overnight. It is minor, but the regulator may respond unpredictably. You must be alert." Ethan nodded. "I'll watch it closely." "We can't afford another malfunction." Lyra gestured toward the console. "It is not enough to watch. You must anticipate. The system speaks to those who understand it. Listen carefully." For hours they worked side by side. Ethan adjusted panels, monitored oxygen flow, and tracked pressure changes, all while interpreting Lyra's subtle gestures. She no longer needed to whisper or test him. Her movements and expressions alone communicated guidance. A tilt of the head, a slight hand motion, a barely perceptible shift in stance. All told him what adjustments to make. The tension was constant. Every flicker of the lights, every small alarm made Ethan's heart race. He realized that the work required more than engineering skill. It required intuition, understanding, and trust. Trust in the system and trust in Lyra. Suddenly, an alarm blared across the lab. Red lights flashed. Ethan's stomach sank. "What now?" he muttered. Lyra's eyes were sharp, scanning the console. She moved closer to him, her hand hovering over the touch interface. Without speaking, she made a series of subtle gestures, almost like a dance. Ethan watched carefully and understood. He adjusted the regulator according to her guidance. The alarm ceased, the light steadied, and the system hummed normally once more. "You are improving," Lyra said, her tone calm but approving. "Do not let fear slow you. Anticipation is stronger than reaction." Ethan exhaled, feeling a rush of relief. "I'm learning," he admitted. "Thanks to you," she tilted her head. "No, you're learning from yourself. I am merely a mirror, showing you the signals you might have missed." The next challenge came in the form of a sudden planetary storm. The sensors warned of rapid changes in atmospheric pressure and temperature. Ethan and Lyra had to stabilize the colony systems quickly, or the lab could face catastrophic damage. Lyra pointed to a panel, her fingers barely brushing the controls. Ethan understood instantly. He moved swiftly, adjusting valves, rerouting energy flows, and monitoring the oxygen levels. The system resisted, struggling against the planet's volatile shifts, but Ethan remained focused. Lyra's presence gave him confidence, guiding him through each decision without a single word. Minutes felt like hours, and sweat dripped down his brow. Every flicker, every pulse, every small noise was significant. He had to act before the system reacted. With one final adjustment, the alarm stopped. The lights glowed steadily, the temperature stabilized, and the lab's atmosphere returned to normal. Lyra smiled faintly, a rare display of emotion for her species. "You see, human, you understood the signals. You acted before the system failed. That is the difference between reacting and leading." Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. I did it," he said, almost in disbelief. "I really did it." "You did," she replied softly. "And in doing so, you proved what humans are capable of. Adaptability, patience, and understanding can bridge the gap between species and challenges alike. You are not limited by your biology or experience. You are limited only by your willingness to perceive and act." For a moment, the lab was silent except for the soft hum of the machines. Ethan felt a deep respect for Lyra, not just as a colleague, but as a teacher and guide. He realized that humans often underestimated their potential when facing unknown forces, whether alien cultures or unpredictable planets. Lyra's eyes scanned the data once more. "There is one more task," she said. "A communication relay must be completed to stabilize the external sensors. If done correctly, it will protect the colony from future storms and allow the station to predict atmospheric shifts hours in advance." Ethan followed her to the relay console. The device was complex, requiring delicate adjustments and constant monitoring. He worked methodically, following Lyra's gestures and timing. The process was intricate, like a dance between human intuition and alien precision. Hours passed as he balanced the inputs, tuned frequencies, and stabilized the system. Lyra guided him with subtle nods, slight hand movements, and brief expressions. Ethan's understanding of the signals grew stronger with every adjustment. Finally, with one careful motion, the relay system activated fully. Data streamed in from the planet below, accurate and precise. The colony's sensors now had real-time predictive capability, a significant advancement that could prevent disasters in the future. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. "We did it," he said, voice filled with triumph. Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Yes. And in doing so, you have shown that human determination and intelligence are invaluable. You have the capacity to interpret, adapt, and act beyond simple understanding. That is why you succeeded." He looked at her, realizing that her praise was more than professional. It was recognition of his potential, his willingness to learn, and his ability to work with another species to overcome challenges. He felt a sense of accomplishment deeper than anything he had known. "Thank you, Lyra," he said, his voice steady, "for guiding me, and for trusting me." She nodded, her expression calm and serene. "Trust is mutual, Ethan. You have earned it. And now you understand what I meant yesterday with my test." Understanding requires more than listening to words. It requires observing, feeling, and interpreting the signals beneath them. Ethan remembered the whispered question, the tension it had caused, and how he had passed the challenge by looking beyond the literal meaning. Now he saw it clearly as a metaphor for the lessons he had learned, that success depended on patience, perception, and trust. The colony's systems were secure, the storm outside beginning to fade. Ethan leaned against the console, exhausted but content. Lyra stood beside him, a silent presence of guidance and intelligence. Together they had bridged the gap between human and alien, between uncertainty and understanding. As the sun rose over the planet's horizon, bathing the station in soft golden light, Ethan realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not in sheer force or technology alone. It was in adaptability, intelligence, and the willingness to reach beyond what was familiar. Humans could overcome challenges that seemed impossible when they worked with understanding and trust. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, Ethan. But now you know the power of observation, patience, and interpretation. That knowledge will guide you. Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of pride and hope. I understand, he said. And I'm ready. The station's hum continued, steady and reliable. The machines, once unpredictable, now moved in harmony with the humans who maintained them. Ethan and Lyra shared a quiet moment of accomplishment, knowing that together they had achieved something remarkable. And as the planet below shifted and glowed, unpredictable yet beautiful, Ethan felt the truth of the lesson deep within him. That humans, with intelligence, courage, and willingness to learn, could face the unknown and emerge stronger than ever. He glanced at Lyra one last time before leaving the lab, gratitude and respect evident in his eyes. She smiled faintly, her presence both calming and inspiring. Together, they had not only saved the colony but had demonstrated what humanity could achieve when it met intelligence beyond its own. The whispered words from yesterday were no longer a test. They were a reminder that perception and understanding could unlock potential far beyond what was immediately visible. And in the vastness of space, where dangers were unpredictable and challenges immense, that knowledge was more powerful than any technology. As Ethan stepped into the corridor, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The station, the planet, the galaxy, it all seemed a little less daunting, a little more within reach. Humanity had faced the unknown and had succeeded, not with brute force but with patience, intellect, and trust. And that, he realized, was the essence of what it meant to be human,